What's up guys, ZiSotto here, and today we're talking about the patch notes for patch 5.8. Release patch of Chernobog, but also a patch with very drastic guard changes and some other interesting things coming up in the future of SMITE. So overall, really cool stuff. Maybe something that we can quickly mention beforehand. There's also been a post or two posts on Reddit regarding changes to how patches will be released and how the testing works and everything. So as far as I remember if I remember correctly, this patch will go on PTS this Friday, but will not be released next week for PC, but the week after. I'm not sure if that's still on schedule because nothing of that was really said in the patch notes, but it seems that there's a change in how that will work out, and we'll see how exactly that goes. And from next patch on, it will be an earlier PTS as well, but we'll see about that. With that, let's jump into the patch notes and start off with the new god, Chernobog. A quick look at his picture here. That's what he looks like. That's his art. In-game is somewhat similar. He's a little bit smaller than I expected, but looks pretty cool overall. And with that, we can go right into his abilities. So, his leaked abilities turned out to be not true. The ones that I talked about second. The first ones had some very small hints of what the kit actually was, but overall the kit's very different from what we've seen. In hindsight, maybe it would have been better if it was one of the lead kits, because this was pretty crazy, and not necessarily only in a good way, but we'll get into it. I wish we could have had the hit scan basic instead. That would have been cool, but oh well, let's go. Passive, Heart of Gold. Every successful basic attack impales the enemy with a brittle crystal. Upon reaching 3 stacks of Heart of the Cold, Cold, the enemy explodes for extra damage in an area around them. Damage 15% plus 1% per level of your total basic attack power. So that means this ability can on its own already go up to 35% extra scaling, but it's a passive, not really an ability. It does not proc ability or like item ability on hit effects, so it does not proc something like Crusher, which I think is very important. And it will also interact with the ultimate, but overall, one thing that you hit every 3 shots on one target, but it doesn't work like, say, Morrigan, where every 3rd shot would become the AoE, but rather you have to hit the same target 3 times for it to happen. Works very easily on a mini-wave though, and should give him some relatively easy clear with the AoE. Then we have his 1 Crystallized Curses. Chernobog conjures a large crystal of curses and hurls it at the target location, dealing damage on landing. After several seconds, the crystalline curses explode, dealing damage again and rooting enemies in the area. The crystal can be detonated early by firing at it with Vicious Barrage. So the projectile is relatively quickly, like drops it from up above, has the initial damage of 50 to 170 plus 80% scaling. And the explosion has 50 to 170 plus 80% scaling, meaning the ability has a total of 160% scaling and 340 base damage. Now, base damage is not completely out of control. The scaling for a standard in-kit ability is maybe a little bit off. It has a 1 second root duration, just a quick CC and all mana cost. Cooldown goes from 15 to 11 seconds. Vicious Barrage. Active, Chernobog fires an enlarged crystal shot that can pierce enemies and deals damage like a basic attack. This applies a single stack of Heart of the Cold to all enemies it passes through and instantly detonates crystallized curses. Chernobog gains increased attack speed for several seconds after using this ability. Damage 100% of your basic attack damage. Attack speed increase 30% to 70%. Duration 3 to 5 seconds. Mana cost 80 to 100. Cooldown 12 seconds. So with this one, you have everything that you have in a basic attack. This thing can crit, this thing can proc other basic attack effects like, for example, Frostbound Hammer as well. This can also apply the passive, meaning I'm pretty sure it would also activate the passive if you hit it on the target that has already been hit twice. And yeah, that way you only have to hit 2 basics for the activation. And it also props the Crystallized Curses. So in an ideal scenario, what you would want to do is throw the Crystallized Curses slightly behind an enemy and then hit them with a Vicious Barrage. For the normal basic attack damage, ideally, if a basic attack cancels, so you hit the basic attack, then the Vicious Barrage right through it, and then you get the detonation from the Crystallized Curses. And then you'll have an attack speed steroid of up to 70% afterwards on a relatively short cooldown with 12 seconds. The whole functionality is maybe somewhat similar to Terra between her 3 and her dash, but considering it's on a hunter and it's pretty much almost instant and it's ranged and it comes with a steroid and it has an insane amount of scaling, that's pretty scary. And we're not done yet. And then we have Into Darkness. Dash forward with your wings in a shadowy form, dealing damage to enemies on the way and slowing them. If you collide with any wall, you connect with it, becoming a shadow on the wall for a few seconds. You're unable to be hit or targeted during this time. You gain a second dash to leave the wall or can cancel the ability early. So to leave early. So this is the one we already basically knew about. Damage 60 to 120 plus 45% scaling. That means if you hit somebody with a double dash into the wall and back, it's still a 90% scaling. The slow will stack. So it's a 25% slow once, and then apparently it can go up to 50%, which would be reduced down. Slow duration is only 2 seconds though. But the Untitled frame in the wall is not as long as it sounded in the initial descriptions of it. I think it's maybe 2 seconds at best, I would think. You really can't stay in the wall all too long and you have to dash back out. So I think it's how it's going to be used primarily. Just juke something and try to hit the enemy with it and then dash back in. Or use it as an extended dash by dashing towards the wall and then dashing out in another direction. The cooldown here is a little bit longer, 18 seconds to 14 seconds. I'm pretty sure what you're going to prioritize is going to be the crystallized curses because it has so much extra damage, even though the base scaling is also really, really good, but it also has the cooldown reduction. And then afterwards, between the Vicious Barrage and the Into Darkness, it's going to be a bit more of a, whatever you prefer, though overall I think the attack speed steroid from Vicious Barrage and the longer duration will probably take the cake, and Into Darkness will primarily be the escape. But then we also have the ultimate. And I wish we hadn't. Ultimate living nightmare, and it really is a nightmare. During a brief channeling period, Chernobog summons shadows at the location of all enemies that apply a stacking slow and last for 8 seconds. Chernobog can select any of his shadow clones to fly towards. Once he reaches the location, he takes the place of his shadow, refreshing his cooldowns, as well as temporarily obtaining damage mitigations, extra movement speed, and every attack triggers Heart of Cold. It's a 110 second cooldown. Damage mitigation 20% to 40%. That is an insanely high amount. I mean, Raven used to deal with those numbers and that was stupid, and he didn't have the same damage output at the time as this guy will have. Sure, if you're building completely squishy, then you won't notice it as much, but if you build a little bit bruise or just one tank item, this will do so much. Movement speed 30%. That's, level 5, you don't even have to have boots yet. You just chase someone down for 6 seconds. That's the duration of this thing. And again, it has a complete cooldown reset for everything but the ultimate. So even if you're fighting someone in close range and you feel like you're about to lose, you use all your cooldowns, use your ultimate, swoop back down on them, and you have all your cooldowns reset. I don't even know why he gets the cooldown reset on this. It's absolutely unnecessary, same as that amount of damage mitigation. And the movement speed means that you can't really get away. So these shadows kind of like, the slow is not that insane, but the fact that even if you use an escape, he's going to land really close to you really quickly. It doesn't take him long to fly over at all. And then still has that 30% movement speed to chase you down. It's just absolutely crazy. And that overall also leads to the fact that communication for the enemy team is going to be so crucial because you're going to be so lost without it. He's going to reveal everyone on the map, every enemy. And what you normally would want to do is you want to go away from his shadow thingos so they can slow you. And then you have a better chance to, kind of survive somehow. It doesn't even say how much slowness is or something, but unfortunately, yeah. But as it stands, that's not even the case. That's not even possible. Or that's not even what you always want to do, because he could also be using his ultimate to get out of a situation. And if you're paying attention to him at that moment, sure, they will work, but you won't always have eye on everyone on the map and the health bar. So this guy, maybe in a fight, then he is really low, tries to ult away, you see the shadow forms around you, and you're like, oh damn, he's probably gonna ult someone and he might attack me. So you back out, because obviously that's what you want to do. You don't want to get slowed beforehand, so he has the upper hand from the start. No, you want to go away. And then he swoops down where you were, because you ran away, where the shadows are now, because he just wants to get out and he sees you are walking away. So he can just go there. He can just have that distance to you from the start when he lands and just walk in the other direction. And there's such a big chance that 1 out of 5 people will always be walking away from these shadow forms because they don't want to get slowed, because they maybe low themselves and they're a little bit concerned. So if he uses an escape, there is such a good chance for him to survive, and it's such an easy escape overall in that regard as well. And as a ganking tool, it's absolutely crazy as well. You know, just be on one side of the map and be on the other side pretty much immediately. He's like, everything in his kit screams Jungle Hunter. The scaling, making him super good with abilities, the comboing, the CC between the slows and the root, the fact that he works very well with jungle walls because you can bounce back and forth, and the ultimate that makes him gank everywhere. I would not be surprised if he becomes one of the more staple jungle hunters, if not the first full-on staple jungle hunter. In the hunter role, he's going to be awkward because I don't know how you're going to use this ultimate in the hunter role, because you don't really have the chance to leave lane that much. But yeah, solo's also going to be pretty crazy. The impact that you can have with this from solo, I don't know. I think this guy will need some pretty heavy nerfs, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of them come on PTS. Chernobog, everyone. I, once again, would have probably preferred the leak that turned out to be fake, even though that was crazy enough in itself. With that, moving on to the rest of the patch. We also have the recolor here. Quick look at that. Looks pretty cool. Bit more ghoulish, I would say. And that brings us to the other skin. So yeah, right here. Why not? We have the skin for Kukulin, the United World skin. Really, really cool in game. I think this picture actually doesn't do it justice. I think that skin looks really cool, especially in his non-berserk form. Really cool design, some cool voice lines and effects as well. So that one, top notch, but it's not even the best one this patch, in my opinion. We have Chibi Fenrir, for those who like that, but we have this guy. Cabrakan Fat Loki. And yes, it's as ridiculous as it sounds. His ultimate is multiple Loki statues. He's got a passive, special emote where he turns into a Loki decoy and just goes like whoop, and all that kind of stuff. This skin is full on meme, but it's a meme I would like to fully embrace. So, God-given skin, absolutely one of my favorite SMITE skins at this point, if not my favorite. Then we have Hachiman Northern Ranger, aka Hachiman looking like Uller. Has a pretty cool horse. I just find it very weird that he looks so much like Uller, which is a fair bit too confusing for me. But yeah, oh well. Then we have Chernobog's Mastery skin, here, the gold skin. That's pretty cool. And that is technically it for the skins this patch. But we should look a little bit into how we can get the rest here, because there's some weird stuff going on. We have the Divine Uprising event. We'll not go through all that completely. But what I can tell you is there was going to be a Bologna skin at the end. We will look at that here because this picture is a little bit too small for that. There's going to be a tier 5 Bologna skin. This is what it looks like. I think that looks really, really cool. I really like the design here. So every time you use a different stance, you're going to look different. Has a bit of a Shyvana taste from League of Legends, in my opinion. And I really love that design. So yeah, but you have to buy a fair amount of skins to get this one, which we get 2 right now. And there is going to be some bundle, basically. Yeah, a bit of lore here. We also have the next 3 confirmed gods, by the way. We have Chernobog, then we have here Baron Samedi, and here we have Pele, which are all have been confirmed on the patch notes, and we'll be able to see that basically in-game, the coming soon here, is going to be filled with the new matching pantheons for that. So we're starting with the Slavic pantheon, and we have Chernobog here, yada, 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 and we have the skin. And this skin we can see a little bit better here. That's the first skin for Chernobog, kind of the, cosmic style. Looks pretty cool in my opinion. And that is going to be the bonus skin if you buy all Slavic chests. And the Slavic chests kind of work like the Odyssey. So the first chest here will have Fat Loki Cabrakan or Northern Ranger Hachiman in this patch. I think you actually get some gems from questing as well at some point. I think 50 gems through something. But yeah, mostly you will have to buy these. And then there's going to be 2 other Slavic Pantheon things, apparently, and 2 other ones in 5.9, 5.10. And then we move over to the next Pantheon. What I am not sure here is if this will all be skins or if we'll have jump stamps and that kind of stuff in there, or maybe, the more classic things like ward skins, etc., which kind of would devalue it a little bit down the road. We'll have to find out about that. But yeah, if you want to get the dragon Bologna skin, you have to get it all basically. And yeah, it's going to take a while. It's going to be quite a few patches. It's basically a summer Odyssey, so to speak. I think there's going to not be a Summer of Smite based on that, but we'll see about that. And then we'll move on a little bit. We've covered all this. We have the Divine Uprising. We got to the actual changes. We have new free gods for players. We have Kukulkan, Nemesis, Bologna, Ares, and Artemis being free for player from update 5.8 on, which I think is pretty cool. A bit more variety, a bit more things to test out, especially the choices of gods here for that are really nice as well. I don't quite know how Ares and Bologna fit in compared to the other ones, but good enough. And Bologna, as opposed to Child of Smite, I guess, has to be free now. Tutorial update, a basic tutorial and a tutorial are put together. New cosmetics, Slavic fountain skin, Slavic loading frame, and America global emote that comes with the United bundle, I would think. There is new additions to the Awesome Chest with Playmaker Naja, Oblivion Hound Cerberus, and Oblivion Queen Discordia. And there are new things in the Fantasy Point store, that is La Rocca Hercules, Star Time Member Stat, and Privateer 2. And that brings us to the item Melons. The first one is Evolved Warrior's Blessing. Decreased protection gained from evolving this item from 15 and 15, magical and physical, to 10 and 10. Basically, a reverse of a previous buff, because this item just happened to be, a little bit too weak at the start and is apparently now picked up too much, strangely enough. I feel like it's still mostly a solo item after all, but I guess the question is for me if the values may make other early strat more viable again, though I still think that the selfie and all that kind of stuff really is very good still. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some cheeky outlier strats trying to avoid Warrior's Blessing, but I also wouldn't be surprised if the majority of players stays with Warrior's Blessing. Soul Reaver was too good. What a surprise. You buff an item into high heavens and no compensation nerfs. So yeah, well, increased cost from 2,650 to 2,750. Makes it a little bit more expensive as an early game choice. Still not absolutely terrible. And with a high power and nice passive, probably still here to stay. Son of Fal. This one's crazy. Son of Fal decreased cost from 2,500 to 2,300. A lot more accessible early on. 200 gold is a fair bit of a chunk. New passive. Anytime you would be dealt more than 20% of your max health by a single magical ability, that damage is instead reduced by 10%. This effect has no cooldown. Against bursty guards that can really chunk your HP, this could be huge. I mean, it's 10% damage mitigation. It's not crazy. It's not Chernobog level. It's like 40%. But it's still something worth considering, in my opinion. Not only because of the passive being better, but also decreased price. Also still a decent amount of power and magical defense on that item. So if you find yourself in a matchup against somebody who's very bursty, prime example being Habois here, then this could definitely help. How much this mitigation turns out to be depends a bit on how it's implemented into the game, how it's factored in, and depending on that, it may be more or less impactful. We'll have to see if it's worth it, if it's good enough. But I definitely say it's worth testing now. Only Hunter's Garb, new passive for each enemy within 55 units of you, you gain a stack of 2% damage mitigation. This caps at 3 stacks. Previously, it was 3 enemies, 5%. So it's now 6% instead, and it's more consistent in that it goes up depending on the number of enemies. I think it's better. I think it's more interesting in that regard. The weird part for Only Hunters is still that the rest of the stats just aren't your primary pickup choices in most situations. It's not like the item that you would go to over others that have cooldown reduction or passive or something. But it's definitely something that you should keep an eye on. Depending on the matchup for a tankier solo or even maybe support, this can be more interesting with this consistent mitigation, especially with one guard always having 2% mitigation. God Balance. This one, this is going to be my I told you so moment. Achilles. I made an Achilles rant a while ago, and there was a fair bit of backlash, and a lot of people telling me that Achilles is actually fine already or already over-nerfed. I was just being whiny and, all that kind of stuff. This is my, I don't even know how to call it, my verbal middle finger to you in form of the changes that Hi-Rez has made this patch. The hero of the Trojan War has been a very popular pick and ban since his ability to join ranked and SPL matches. His early pressure combined with a strong crowd control allows him to quickly overpower opponents, even if his late game isn't the same level of other picks. We are reducing the spread damage he gets with the Shield of Achilles while reducing the double tap damage from combat dodge. This should help lower the early pressure he brings and allow players to bring him to the mid and late game where his Achilles heals really shows. Shield of Achilles. Decreased damage to targets in the outer cone from 80% to 70%. Was that so hard? Was that really so hard? Did that really have to take that long? Did we not preach that from the start? That's what we needed. I don't even think the combat dodge nerf was necessary on top of that, but it's a flat 10 damage reduction. Decreased damage from 65 to 225 to 55 to 215, which translates into 20 flat damage, with both taps. I think this nerf is what Achilles needed, and he may need some return buffs towards his late game, make him even him out a little bit more in other places, not in Shield of Achilles damage being up in the cone again. That's completely fine. So Achilles is somebody where I would not expect more nerfs at this point, but rather the next change to him would probably be more likely to be a buff, unless somebody comes up with some really wonky strat. Aphrodite. Kiss. Decrease cooldown of this ability if you hit an ally from 3 seconds to 1 second. Yeah. So now you can stun a little more and kiss a little more. Well, good for you, A bit of a change. But now we have a big one. So this is mainly about Guanyu's attack animation not fitting what he does, because it always felt weird. He has these normal basic swings and all these, cleaves and pokes and stuff in between that all just don't have any effect other than being normal basics with a little bit more damage because longer delay. That's been changed. Basic attacks, the third hit of Guanyu's ability chain, basic attack chain, now cleaves. The last hit of Guanyu's hit chain range has been increased from 12 to 16 seconds. The first 2 hits of Guanyu's hit chain remain unchanged. That's really interesting. I like Guanyu jungle, so I'm really happy about this, because AoE cleave is going to help with that. But also the 4th hit, with its longer delay, now being able to poke the enemy where it otherwise wouldn't have reached anymore, can be very interesting, given you get 4 basics off, which is always, that has to happen first. But overall, I think this is going to feel a lot cooler than before. On top of that, and this is really the crazy part. The other part was, nice, but this is the crazy part. Painless. Stacks now only reset when out of combat rather than being consumed by a single ability. The question is, if your passive is not fully stacked, will it also reset? But I don't think so. I don't think you will run around with no passive most of the time, but rather the part that resets is when you have the effect and you have full stacks. So you will stack up until 20 stacks outside of combat, in combat rather, but if you go out of combat in between, it doesn't matter. And then once you hit 20 stacks and you use an ability, then Painless activates and stays active until you go out of combat. And that means that all of his abilities get amplification. You get a better heal, you get more protection shred, I think, and you get a better slow on the 2, and you get a better slow on the ultimate or something. I don't know from the top of my head, but it's definitely a lot. And getting all these effects means that when he gets his Painless going, he's just gonna run through you and deal so much damage. And when he builds Mystical Nail to constantly have this passive up, he's gonna just berserk around, basically. And I think Guanyu is gonna be a monster after this patch. These changes do so much for him. His clear is going to be better, his jungle is going to be better, and all these effects make him so crazy at both trading as well as ganking. You know, just dash into someone, slow them, and then ult them and slow them more, and deal even more damage with the 3 afterwards and heal yourself or whatever you want to do. It's up to you. It's all crazy. I'm going to play so much Guan Yu. I love it. Capri. But I also think you need serfs, by the way. Capri. Solar Flare. Increased root duration from 1.3 seconds to 1.7 seconds to 1.5 seconds to 1.9 seconds. Whoa, 0.2 seconds more root for an ability that's relatively hard to hit and has a long delay and is easy to avoid. It also gets some extra damage from 50 to 250 to 60 to 280. Yeah. I think it's cool, but I also think it doesn't do much for him. I don't think this is going to change him. Guy that is going to change is Kuzenboy. Water Bowl. Increased damage reduction per stack from 1% to 1.5%. As a result, maximum damage reduction is increased from 10% to 15%. So the more hits you take, the more damage reduction you get. Get a only hunters on top of that for even more damage reduction for free. And you're going to have quite a lot. But then you also have Shell Spikes. Decreased damage reflect from 20% to 40% to 10% to 30%. Especially the early rank here is going to be a fair bit weaker now. And then the max out is also 10% less. But that it makes more sense to invest into like points into that now to get the reflect damage. But also decrease the mana cost from 50 to 70 to 50 at all ranks. So you can use it more, which is really nice, especially if you want to reset your 1. Or you could reset your 3 as well, because this ability now decreases the cooldown of Sumo Slam as well as Nene Kappa by the same amount. And that's the really cool part. And I think this is going to be impactful. I think you can push enemies so much now with this that he can bully much better. I know that some people don't like Kuzenbo's design because, you know, Reflect is frustrating, and I can see that, but I just enjoy Kuzenbo as the meme that he is, and I enjoy Kuzenbo not being focused on the shell spikes. I enjoy playing him focused on the 3, on the Sumo Slam and slamming enemies through minions. The question here is really, with you having to max the shell spike to get this reset, how exactly that's going to play out. If you're going to max like the 3, then the 2, then the 1, and how effective that will be. But overall, I think it's cool and I like it. And I like it that he's more focused around pushing around people and having some more damage reduction himself and less around just the reflect. Nemesis. You know, she gets getting nerfed. Now she has too much pressure here as well, and too much clear, so Slice and Dice is getting nerfed too. 50 damage to 40 damage to 170 damage to 160 damage, so 10 damage off the top. That means it's 20 damage off the top if you hit someone in the center, which is quite significant. And that means that if you're playing Nemesis, listen up here, because on level 1, your dash will now actually do more damage than your Slice and Dice. Your dash will do 100 damage. It has 1 second more cooldown, but that should pay off anyways. And you can attack cancel better with the 1 as well. So you just want to dash through the enemies twice instead of going for the Slice and Dice, in my opinion. You also get an escape for free, and you're not really going to attack someone with the 2 on level 1. As Nemesis, you're probably better off running most of the time anyways. So with this nerf, 1 before 2, for 1 rank only, should be better from what I can tell. But we'll have to see if this nerf actually stays that way, because I feel like Nemesis has been pretty hard. Pretty hard. Like, at some point we gotta, you know, let off a little bit easier. Terra, however, deserves a nerf. It's been a little bit out of control. If you've not been paying attention to that, she's been very out of control. Banned almost everywhere and everything. She now gets a nerf to the monolith. Decrease the amount of hits taken to destroy the monolith from 5 to 3. Good change. Was expecting that change. She can still block off shots really easily though in many situations. But Earthen Fury, that's the big one. Decrease damage mitigation from 10% to 5%. Decrease damage amplification from 10% to 5%. Good. Less of a crazy engage potential through the ultimate, and also means it's more hard countered with a certain relic that increases the damage taken, because now it will actually increase more of the damage taken as everyone on the team gets a heal over time. So a little bit more countable, a little bit more turned down. I feel like she will still be very strong though, and I would not be surprised if it needs more nerf than that to take her down. Or take her into balance. Thor. Mjolnir's Attunement. Increase the amount of damage the return hammer deals to minions from 50% to 80%. That's actually really cool. This not only helps with jungle clear, but also solo clear quite drastically. and, you know, gives him a little more early clear potential that way. I'm pretty sure it's actually... I'm going to read this, but the wording is weird. In our last round of changes, we focused on improved clear through Berserker Barrage, but these changes did not help him enough in that department. In most cases, Berserker Barrage is not the correct ability to take for level 1 jungle clear. Melons' attunement is getting a buff towards minion and jungle camp clear, allowing the return hit to deal more damage. This makes it clear the best option for his early jungle pathing. Yeah, so I was going to get to it here with the 1. Even if the 1 and the 3 deal the same amount of damage early on, even if that's the case, Mjolnir's attunement is better because you can basic attack while it flies around and you're not like in the animation as with Berserker Barrage. That means if Mjolnir's attunement gets more damage on top, Mjolnir's attunement is even better for clear, and that makes it the primary focus choice, even more than before. Vemana suffers very highly from mana cost, limiting his ability to trade in lane, causing him to mostly focus on wave clear, when to allow him to have the same flexibility with his abilities as other warriors do. Decreased mana cost on everything. Clear the path 70 to 90 goes down to 70 at all ranks. Armored Umbrella goes from 60 to 100 to 60 to 80, much more reasonable. And Umbrella rank goes from 60 to 100 to 60 to 80 as well. Shibalanke. Dead of the Night. That one's... Whew. This ability now stacks off of player damage dealt instead of kills. Every 1000 damage dealt by Shibalanke to players, this is player damage only, will provide him with 1 stack. This ability has 6 stacks, each giving you 5 extra power. Six stacks, 6 kills, you know, you get them late game most of the time, but not always. And if your team's behind, you don't get them. And then, yeah, well, you're waiting for that power for quite a while. 6,000 player damage. If you're not getting that as an ADC, then either the game is over too early or what are you doing? Like, there's also another buff here, Rising Dagger 60 to 100 mana cost down to 60 to 80. So you can do a little bit more damage to your opponents, so you can get a little more player damage off. But really, 1,000 player damage is not a lot. 6,000 player damage is enough to get this fully stacked, which is 30 extra power, which is definitely not insignificant. Sure, at the end of the day, still, you know, Shibalanke gets pressured and all that, but I think this is gonna push Shibalanke way up from where he was. And that's it for this patch. Quite a fair bit to go through here. Bit surprised there wasn't anything for I think Kukulon still being one of the better performers, but overall, many of the gods that needed some touch-ups were changed, and then a lot of gods were changed where it's totally unexpected to me, and they're just, you know, okay, it's gone a little bit crazy. Concerned about Chernobog, not quite sure how that's gonna end up, because I feel like this guy is gonna be strong for a very long time, because it's gonna take a lot of gradual nerfs to find out where his place is. Maybe PTS will help here, and we will get some nerfs on PTS that will actually already balance him out a little more than expected. But overall, yeah, it's gonna be a while. And with that, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope this was interesting and insightful. If you're new to the channel, feel free to stop by me with the bell. It really helps me out. Other than that, see you for the next one tomorrow. DukeSloth, out.